All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Centers track call for the Campus Research Computing Consortium. Our call topic this week is ACCESS Allocations, and we're joined by Dave Hart, Stephen Deems, and Anna Alber to talk a little bit about the new ACCESS project allocation models. Right before that, I wanted to provide a little bit of background in the CARC organization. CARC is an organization dedicated to advancing the frontiers of research by improving the effectiveness of RCD professionals, including their career development and visibility and their ability to deliver services and resources for researchers. CARC is made up of the People Network, which is a number of tracks in an ongoing conference that happens every month. You're currently in the Emerging Centers track. There's also the researcher-facing track, systems-facing track, data-facing track, and strategy and policy-facing track. If you're interested in software-facing, check out the U.S. Research Software Professionals group. There's also a set of working and interest groups that are specifically dedicated to specific problems, questions around careers, professionalization, the CI ecosystem. And then all of us are kept in check or otherwise regulated by the operations groups that make sure that the logistics work well and everything is sort of moving smoothly. So that's the overview. I've just repeated that just describe the tracks, but you can see a little bit more detail on these pages. We do have a call document which we'd like you to sign in on if you're joining us. Jane, I think will drop the link to that call document in the chat. And so what I'm going to do is hand over the reins to Dave, and Dave will present on ACCESS allocations, and then we'll have opportunity to have questions and comments. Dave, I'm going to go ahead and promote you to co-host.
Okay.
While you're switching that, Rich, I'm just going to just jump in here for a second and let everybody know one of our big pushes this year for the Emerging Centers group will be to try to bring in new people. And, you know, we see a lot of the same faces, which we're happy to see, and we've created a great community, but we would like to challenge every person who attends these to bring somebody new. Do you know anybody? You know, I know when we talked to somebody, they were like, oh yeah, well, there's a community college, there's a this, there's a that, there's an R2 that I know. And if you have any connections of people that are even thinking about starting to support researchers with cyber infrastructure, for lack of a better name, please bring them and introduce them and then maybe kind of follow along, make sure that they show up. You know, we really need to get beyond who we're currently reaching. So, and I asked in the chat if anybody's new attending today, and Anna said she has never attended this yet. So welcome, Anna, and I know you're part of our presenters, so we'll learn more about you, but we're going to try to do this at the beginning of each of our sessions so we can all get to know each other a little bit more. And another thing that we'll try to do next time is make sure you put your university or where you're from in your name. And oh, and we got Agbeli, Amico, new with NCAR. Very nice to have you on board with us. We won't put you on the spot today to introduce yourselves, but we really hope that we can find out who the new people are and we can make you feel welcome and intentionally grow this group in a way that that we're meeting the needs of many, many, many more people. So that's just my little spiel. I'll turn off, and Dave, you can tell us all the things you need to tell us because we all need to know.
Yeah, no, thanks,
Oh,
Jane.
sorry, Anna. I thought you were. I'm sorry, Anna. Sorry.
I was going to say.
I thought Anna was. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Surprise, so, Anna. Yes, you are. No, you're not. Okay. That's great. Okay. But we're really happy to have you here then, even especially. So, all right, I'm done.
All right, so thanks. Let me actually introduce you here on our behalf. So I'm here with ACCESS Allocations. I'm the co-PI on the award. I'm from NCAR. Stephen Deems is the PI on the allocations award. He's at the Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center. Agbeli Amico, he's here from NCAR as well. He's our DEI facilitator on the project. And I also introduce Alana Romanella from CU Boulder. She's here on behalf of the Access support team, representing them as well. So if because of the way the program works, we invited the support team along in case there were questions and to hear what your thoughts are about the project as a whole or the program as a whole. So let me share my screen, which I realize I haven't done yet. We'll get through a couple of slides here just to give us some context, and I'm just going to open it up to questions. Hopefully this won't take too long. So yeah, again, this is the full management team for the allocation service. I've mentioned Stephen, myself, and Agbeli, but Laura Harriet's a co-PI from NCSA. Rob Blight and Nathan Tolbert are part of our DevOps team leads, and Ken Hackworth from PSE is from handles our allocations day-to-day operations. So the goal of ACCESS Allocations has three objectives. We want to create an open, inviting, and democratized allocations marketplace with an efficient, scalable, and simplified review and request framework that's built on a robust, decentralized, and flexible software platform. So we've organized ourselves along in a way to pursue those three goals. In particular, the second goal is what I'm going to talk a lot about today. How do we do this? How do we create this simplified request framework? One of the things I like most about what we've been able to do in the early parts of the award, making some significant changes from the prior process to really make it a more open environment. So in particular, one thing we did was adjusting the amount of review panel effort as well as researcher effort in anticipation of getting more projects in the ecosystem. And because we wanted to make sure that the staff could keep up with it. And also address a concern that was commonplace under Exceed is like 10-page proposals every year for modest amounts of compute time was quite the ask for everyone. So instead, we've moved in ACCESS to a small set of standard project types. We make awards, and a lot of those, several of those in ACCESS credits. So it simplifies your initial engagement with us. And there's a lot of RP involvement in the process. So let me talk about the standard project types. We also sometimes call these opportunities. So if I slip into the opportunities nomenclature, that's the same thing as the different project types. But we picked 4 tiers, the first 3 of which are awarded in ACCESS credits, and they're just scaled to, let you pick the level you want to start at based on what you think your initial need is. And also, how much work do you want to put in at the very beginning to make your request? So the Explore ACCESS opportunity is the smallest scale award. It's best suited for endeavors with light resource requirements. And we do allow graduate students to be the lead on these allocations to support their dissertation work, along with a letter from their advisor to confirm that that's what the work project's for. This allows the advisor to separate their research track work, their supported agency-funded work from their graduate students' dissertation work. The Discover ACCESS is another step up from Explore. It requires a small 1-page write-up, but it's a significant amount of time that you might be able to do a lot of work for many modest scale research awards. It's a good fit if you're like a campus champion or a campus facilitator, which some of you might be, if you're interested in getting an allocation for your campus and allowing your researchers access through your project. You can request a Discover ACCESS award as a good place to handle that. Accelerate ACCESS is a more substantial mid-scale award, usually for an experienced researcher. You could combine multiple research grants here. A production gateway, science gateway could also fit here perhaps. And then there's the Maximize ACCESS. That's the largest scale. That's going to be very similar to what we're used to. That does have the annual 10-page proposal requirements, but it's designed mostly for the largest scale work. The other thing that's important here is you can have multiple projects here. So if you have multiple funding awards from different agencies, you can request a modest scale project for each of them. It is no longer you have one project and all of your funded work goes through that. You can combine them if it makes sense. If the work is so closely related, it doesn't make sense to pull it apart, but it's really designed to allow the researcher to decide what's the best fit with their projects. The other difference that I will note here is the maximize access opportunity is moving later this year to a semi-annual opportunity as opposed to every quarter. Because of the ease of access at the other 3 levels, we've reduced the number of times we offer the maximize opportunity. I think that's everything there. I'll happy to provide you these slides. This is just a table to sort of summarize the different tiers and where you might want to look. The important things here, of course, if you don't have a supporting grant, we still will allow you to request an allocation. That's been a policy of ACCESS for a long time, of ACCESS for a long time. The difference is you can only ask for one of those. If you have no funding awards, you can have one project, but you can't have multiples with no funding awards. So you'll have to focus your efforts there. The Explore, Discover, and Accelerate are accepted continuously. The different proposal lengths are shown here. The Accelerate is interesting in that it has 3 pages, but there's a rolling panel review. So it'll be reviewed typically within 2 weeks to a month of when you submit it, and you'll be able to get started shortly thereafter. I think I want to talk more now here about access credits, which is another aspect that was new to what we've done. So this is just a currency that, quite honestly, we made up so that you can get in the door more easily, and you would exchange these for time on specific resources. One of the main rationales is prior to having access credits as the units you'll get at the start, your first task before you could even start submitting an allocation request was go do homework. There's 30 resources. Go pick the one specifically that you need for your project. That was your first task. You couldn't even submit a request without picking a resource and having to do a homework slog through the descriptions of 30 plus resources. Here, what we've done is you can ask for credits. And then once you have been approved for a project, you can then go back and take your time to evaluate which resource might be appropriate for your work. So you could start with 1 or 2 and then determine which one is most appropriate, which one is less busy, which one has the software you need. You can take your time there, but you've already been welcomed into the environment. You do, however, have to exchange those credits for specific units. That's the only way we know which resources you do want accounts on and to be set up to use. Another aspect of this, credits are issued in 2 increments. You'll get half of the amount shown in that previous table at the outset, and you just offer a quick progress report to get the other half. Again, this is just a check-in to make sure you're not struggling or you have identified the right resource and you've had success. It's a chance for us to say, hey, this person might need a little more help, or doesn't seem to be getting what they're going to end up with. It's also a chance to say, after spending half of these credits, I now realize I'm going to actually need to upgrade to another level of project. And rather than just sort of, limping along on another half of the small amount, I'm going to upgrade and write the 3-page proposal to move myself to the Accelerate level so I can complete my project without further interruption. And roughly one access credit was established to be the same as 1 Expanse core hour. So if we go back here, Accelerate level, you're looking at 3 million core hours for a 3-page proposal that could last as long as your supporting grant. So we think we've really made the amount of core hours and computing resources you can get significantly larger for a significantly less effort, and spread it out so that you don't have to keep coming back every year if you can fit within these levels. So some thoughts I had when I was putting this together for an emerging centers call. As I mentioned, campus champion and facilitator project requests are welcome. We would point you to the Discover Access request. It's sort of right in the mid-range. It's, and really we expect you to be coaching those folks to move to their own projects at some point. We don't require that you be a formal campus champion member of that team. You can just say you're a facilitator for your campus. But however, we are strongly encouraging you to join that community for various other reasons. It's a great community to be a part of. It's a great mailing list, great reason to be involved, regardless of whether you want the allocation or not. So, you don't have to have an allocation. Join the community just for those peers help you understand what options are available to you. As an emerging center, you definitely want to keep a pointer to the resource catalog handy. This is what's available to you in the ecosystem. It'll tell you about the resources. It's information that you can share with anyone on your campus. And feedback on this catalog is welcome. We're actively working to improve it, to make it more useful, and we're working together with the operations and support teams in Access to do so. We've gotten a lot of feedback in our first year that how important this resource catalog information really is, and we are definitely looking to improve it, to make it a more accessible piece of the infrastructure. And finally, Explore Access is a great starting point for anyone on the campus. That's sort of the point of it, is if you don't know, pick Explore and move forward. That's the idea, is we don't want to make it so burdensome that you have to start with a 10-page proposal or a 3-page, or even know what you need initially. So Explore Access is designed simply to help you get started quickly. If you're doing a classroom activity, it's a good size for that. If you're exploring resource options, getting started, or have a grad student with a dissertation, and if you're eligible, you can always upgrade later. So it's not like you've set yourself in stone and closed off other options by selecting Explore. Get in, get started, figure out where you need to go next, and then you can upgrade to larger project sizes at another time. And lastly, I think I want to talk a little bit about our innovative pilots. So these are longer term efforts where our goal is to provide even greater innovations, as the name implies, to the ecosystem here. We've got 5 different pilots proposed. 2 of them, the first 2 listed here, are about to enter the design and development phase, and the third is about to enter the planning phase. And if you're interested in participating in these, let us know if you're interested. Quickly, to run through what they are, the variable marketplace is a concept that we're trying to work with the resource providers and allow them to do things which you could equate to something like, let's have sales on these resources. So we're going to give a discount in access credit terms to use this resource. So they might target, for example, an emerging center class of sites that say, hey, we're going to offer emerging centers or non-R1 faculty a discounted rate to use our resource, to exchange credits for a discounted rate on our resource. Campus on-ramps, that's another interesting one I'm excited about. The goal there is to change how researchers encounter the ecosystem. So instead of having to find our website through whatever means and find the Access presence on the web, we're trying to develop a way to push the Access presence out to different campuses so that researchers can find out about us at your campus infrastructure. So if you have a website that says, here's what's available to you on our campus for research computing, but oh, by the way, here's everything else that's also available in the NSF ecosystem that you might be interested in, and here's how to get started. So that we're really looking forward to, and working with a number of campuses on that one. It's particularly valuable for campuses that might not have any existing on-campus research computing resources. You can then, I've described it as like a virtual data center, like here's all the resources that your faculty have access to just by existing. They can reach out to the NSF ecosystem and take advantage of that for their needs. The cloud resource integration, we're looking at how we work with the commercial cloud, but also projects like Cloud Bank and improving the integration with Jetstream and other cloud resources. Workflows is going to be interesting. So what if you need not just one resource, but a set of them functioning at the same time? So maybe there's an analysis resource, a storage resource, and a modeling resource that you want to have working together, and you just want to ask for an allocation that spans those 3 sets of resources, or those 3 resources as an integrated set. And then finally, sensor nets and instrumentation. So what if the resource you need is only available on a specific calendar kind of schedule? So unlike an HPC system where you're sharing it at any given time and the scheduler handles that, what if your sensor net requires you to specify exactly when on the calendar you need to use it? When is your instrumentation available to you For example, let's say you're doing a field campaign on an aircraft that involves data collection. And so, well, I need to schedule that field campaign. So we're working on incorporating that kind of resource into the ecosystem as well. Where to find us? The allocations portal is at allocations.access-ci.org. The support portal is right there at support.access-ci.org. If you click on one of them, you'll find links to the other. So, choose which one you'd like to remember, and you'll find all of them there. And then if you have feedback for us based on today's conversation, other thoughts you've had, if you're interested in participating in some way, like reviewing proposals as part of our allocations panel, joining a focus group, or getting involved in the innovative pilots, go to that feedback form that's listed there, and just let us know you're interested. And that's all I had in terms of slides, and I'm happy to field some questions.
Yeah, I'm quite interested in the campus on-ramp. One thought that comes to mind, if we could do an open on-demand plugin that would route to something that we could wrap our branding around, and then just say like access, make it a drop-down menu that you could then control and update as a thing. The other thing I'm thinking about is, I don't know how many of my researchers are already having access. And it would be a great thing for me to report to my senior leadership. I just saw a presentation on EduRoam and how you can go in and basically say, how many of my users are using EduRoam at these different places, and vice versa. So I think in a campus on-ramp, those would be two features that would be really nice, that I could see being relatively easy. But the hard part is, we have so many resources. It'd be really nice for me to pull up a one-pager that says I have 95 faculty and 200 grad students using Access resources, and 50 are using PSC, 90 are using TAC or whatever. So as that, and I'd be glad to help participate on that in that pilot project or things.
Yeah, no, that's some great feedback. The on the on-demand is actually very useful, because the allocations, I'm sorry, the Access support team is working with on-demand. They have on-demand integrated. We hadn't thought about that. The groups, the sites we've been working with actually suggested Coldfront as something that would be useful to integrate with. So that's actually already on our to-do list, but Open On Demand is another possibility of incorporating that. So yeah, it'd be easier to do it, as you said, in a package that's already existing, as opposed to like, so.
And I do believe there is the plan to merge on-demand, Coldfront, and XD mod. I think that's part of the glue. So that would be something to.
Right. So that one of those is already on our list, but Open On Demand is another place to look for that. And then your other point about information about who from your site is using it. Excellent question. I mean, we're happy to provide that to you as a one-off if you ask, but it's certainly a good information, or a good potential feature we could add to the on-ramps. If you pull that down and you're doing that, you should be able to see who's
registering, at least
registering and using it there.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm hoping Steven's catching all that, but that's some great feedback.
Well, I think OSG has some of that through the XD mod data. So I don't know the accounting subsystems of if we can track the site designations through to, like, if we give a credit and the credit is transferred to a thing, in theory, the XD mod should carry us back through the bucket. But that's something like in an ideal world, it would be really nice to be able to say, one of my faculty used 50,000 credit hours at PAC, and So.
No, absolutely. Yeah, the data certainly exists. It should be just a way to how do we incorporate it into the UI, and who should be seeing that, and like how do you want it to get access. So that's great. And we'll put those on our notes.
And I see that for actually very easy, like community college and liberal arts colleges, they could set up an open on-demand front end that almost just jacks them straight to, Access and be done with it. It would be an easy VM to set up as a sort of front end.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. We'll talk with the on-demand folks about that option. I think they're working with, there is an open on-demand effort through the support team, but I'm not sure they are thinking about it that way. I'd have to go check. I'm not familiar. I don't know if Alana, do you have some sense of how they're approaching the open on-demand project within Access?
Sure. So I don't think that's quite the way we are thinking about it, Kirk and Dave. So what I can do is I can certainly take that information back and work with Alan and Dave to see how we can sort of think about maybe implementing that. So if you have kind of further details or thoughts, I'd love to hear them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think like between cold front and open on demand is if you have resources.
Mhm.
Cold front would be a great front end for a school that has basically a fledgling facilitator. They could set up the create a project and book that, and then do an allocation, which would say jump to Access to do the request.
Yeah.
No.
So I think those would be the two avenues of, like, from a zero base, like I'm starting out, I have no idea. You could install a cold front instance and start that process. If you have a fledgling cluster, start with on demand and make it hooked that way.
Yeah, well, that's a definitely interesting, something to explore. We should have a technical discussion on how that's going to work, but maybe we'll let some other
It's theoretical, right?
questions. So I'm intrigued by it now, though. It's interesting. Thank you for the suggestion.
Mhm.
Dave, I know that under the previous model, there was some requests to have researchers provide publications back to the organization. Is that part of the allocations model currently, and how does that work?
Yes, so I'll put this scope on the screen in case you want to collect some other information about where to go. But right, so publication. So in the transition from Exceed, we had to replicate a lot of functionality that was going to be lost when the Exceed portal went away. So we had a frantic 4-month period trying to do that. Initially, and up till now, we only have the ability to add a publication when a researcher is renewing an existing project. That being said, we are days, if not a week or so, away from re-rolling out some publications interfaces as part of researchers' access profiles, so that you can submit a publication anytime, and including when you're submitting allocation requests, but also separately, and attaching it to the projects that the work is associated with. So that's coming out soon. It might have been out by now, but the main developer went on vacation, so we waited till she was back in order to roll it out without breaking everything. So, or if there were any problems, she'll know how to fix them quickly. But that is imminent, in probably by the end of the month.
Okay, that's great to hear. Is any like ORCID integration or anything like that along with
ORCID integration is back. If you go to the allocations website and log in, or under the login menu, you'll see ORCID integration, and that's where you need to go to link your ORCID ID. If you gave Exceed permission to use ORCID, Access inherited that permission. You don't need to do it again. But if you do so, the allocation award you receive is pushed to your ORCID profile under the resources section of your profile.
Well, and I think that's where Cold Front does some of that publication gathering, and it would be useful for a local administrator to capture that data. But if it was fed also to the Access folks, because it would be a Cold Front allocation, right? And we could say, oh, you want Access? Well, here's this, and create the project locally and inform the national.
Yeah, I see what you mean. So, but yeah, the publications are coming in the past. Since we started production, we just had our annual review. So we reported 845 publications that researchers told us about since September. So they're still rolling in at a pretty good clip. And I personally liked it in the report. I mean, in Access, I mean, virtually all the publications came in during the research cycle, the research allocation cycle every quarter. But we're seeing them come in with explore allocation requests, with discover allocation requests, with accelerate. So I've always known, but it's nice to be able to see that, look, science happens regardless of the scale or at all scales of use, not just the massive top tier users. Like, science happens at all levels, and we want to show that and support that.
Anna had a good question on, I mean, to kind of summarize, she had several good questions out there, but on chat, and I guess I'm wondering this too, is basically where can you do within the ACCESS resources, can you have sensitive data, or can you? I mean, is there a place where we should tell people to, here's where you go? I know the responses in chat were kind of, it's up to the resource providers, but is there, this is becoming more and more important. And is there a place that we can either send people to, or could resource providers like say that at the top of their, what data do they request support? Or
no, that's a great point, and a good note for our resource catalog updates. It is value that we allow the providers to indicate. So how you find that out at the moment is a little more challenging. Some resource providers do. I would suggest putting in a support ticket to find out for sure which resource providers do that, because it could depend. There could be special even cases within just general sensitive data, what you might be looking for. So at that level, you might put in a support ticket to find out if that's an option, which resources provide that option. But in the catalog, we are looking to make it a way to filter the resources, and we can maybe look at support for sensitive data is a filter that you'd want to eliminate the ones that don't, so that you see just the ones that do have that feature, which I think would be interesting, and because it does require a significant effort on the resource provider's part to do so. Right.
Yeah,
I think that would be very useful to have that as a filter if it exists, because I know I have researchers all the time saying, can you, and a lot of times, as we all know, like they think they have sensitive data and maybe they don't really, but even to give them a place that they can just filter and look and then decide whether or not they do or not.
Yeah, looking at the resource catalog, I think maybe offering tags of, HIPAA 800-171 as things that a resource provider can tag as, OSG, Globus, maybe types of service and things like that. The other thing that would be nice would be a regional tagging for maybe picking resources that are closer so that we could actually physically go and visit possibly.
Yep.
I think sorry, this is Anna. I think there are two separate questions. Sometimes researchers and non-researchers are not aware of what is sensitive data. So I think that's a separate question. How you determine what goes into that? I think it's actually more complicated than just submitting and using filters. But another question is, if you do know that it's sensitive data. So if it's not a question if it is sensitive, it is sensitive. And then you would like to use, say, ACCESS, so my question is, if I do know that it is sensitive, is there a place? And then the answers seem to suggest that there might be a place, but it might be not that easy to find out which place that is.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And I think, I'm looking at Alana there to say that might be some good, the question about, is my data sensitive, or does it require sensitive data controls or resources, might be a good thing for like the documentation team to address in the knowledge base, perhaps, at least where to find out where they might go. I'm not sure if Access can necessarily be the place to answer all that questions, but maybe direct them back to their campuses and or where they might find information to answer that question for them. So there could be I know they have like community groups. I'm losing the word.
Affinity groups, Dave.
Affinity groups. There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lana. For maybe that kind of sensitive data affinity group might be an interesting thing to include on the portal. So
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, I think affinity groups in discipline and compute type possibly. People using containers, versus genomics folks, because some of these centers are sort of focused more in one type of computing than another. And it may be good for both support teams of, trying to align a researcher doing genomics with a genomics site that, is more familiar. They have more software built for that or whatever.
Mhm.
I agree with this point, because once you mentioned containers, and I know there are all kinds of types of containers and they use, but for example, machine learning and artificial intelligence that I work with often uses Docker containers. That is very convenient and is kind of a standard. On the other hand, Docker containers are not designed to share sensitive data on the same server, because you can have access to it. So what is a plus and a standard to one type of the development might be actually a problem for kind of a different type of the question. So that is why, in a way, if you have an environment for artificial intelligence and machine learning that is often the standard in Docker containers, it does not allow you to handle sensitive data in this shared resource, because it's very easy to access it for other users.
Right.
Yeah, and if I can chime in on that one, Anna, too, speaking from the Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center Bridges 2 resource, we do not permit Docker containers due to security concerns. So a lot of the researchers that come to us with a Docker container, we ask them to move it to a Singularity container instead. So there are a lot of nuances here, and totally agree that these things should be explored more. But yeah, a lot of this is at the RP level. But again, that's speaking just from one resource there.
Yes, thank you.
I wanted to go back. I opened the chat and was seeing some of Anna's other questions. You mentioned another one that was interesting about where you propose a scenario. If you have a research project to develop AI ML algorithm that uses 2 GPUs, not simultaneously, does Access offer an environment with TensorFlow, Python, et cetera, ready to run training and inference, no funding? I'm sure they do, but let me offer this as an option that we do have available. So at the Discover Access opportunity, it requires a 1-page write-up, which you could write up what you're describing here, and what the question you're allowed to, or there's a feature that says, please review this for me and provide me some guidance. So we've made the review of the request a requestable feature, so that you could basically put that in your 1-page write-up and say, point me to the right resources for what I'm imagining here, right? So you could get advice at that point. You'll be getting credits, so then you'll be able to spend them where you need to go, but you can use this question or use the allocations process as a more sort of a support, almost as a support ticket sort of thing, to get a better guidance to how to address that question within the ecosystem. So the team would likely assign it to some RPs where they think that would be a good fit, but they would have a chance to review it and provide you some input, or even say, hey, I'm not this resource, but I bet, try get an allocation or move some credits over to this resource for this. And they know they've done that. I've seen that project or something like that. So that's another feature we've added. So it's not just the review is not just to necessarily be a gatekeeper, but also to just help you, point you in the right direction if you provide us with a little bit more information. So please take advantage of that as well.
I will, thank you.
And thank you for the questions though, Anna. They were good questions.
Well, and thanks, Dave, and your team for joining us today. We really appreciate you coming to speak to our community. And thanks for providing the means to get in touch with you folks later as well. So this has been very, very beneficial and valuable. We really appreciate you coming out and explaining how the new system works.
No problem. Yeah, thanks for inviting us. We're happy to do it. Happy to come again if you'd like. So
Fantastic. Okay, everyone. Next month, the Emerging Centers Call and all the tracks across CARC will focus on accessibility. And we will have a series of speakers across all the different meetings that you can join. And we'll have I think a summary session or an overview session that covers kind of everything in, on the whole. So be on the lookout for an announcement about our part within that and the overall People Network accessibility discussions. If there's anything else folks want to bring, if you want to give us more topics to talk about, please feel free to contact us. We're always happy to hear more about what the track wants to hear. Anything else from anyone on the call?
I'll just add one last thing, just as I always do, but we do have our next probably 5 or 6 months topics tentatively listed on the website under emerging centers on the CARC website, and also this particular session and all of our sessions and all the CARC sessions will be on the CARC YouTube channel. The recording will be when we'll put it up there, so you can always refer back to these. And if you want any additional information from Dave or anybody from the ACCESS team, you can either let me or Rich know, and we can put you in contact with them, or I'm sure they wouldn't care if you contact them directly.
All right. Thanks again, Dave.
Yeah, thanks. It was great.
And all. And we'll see you in a month.
Yep.
Take care.
Bye.